Good evening, my name is Kacper Paradowski and you're watching Poland Daily News. The Warsaw Municipal Water and Sewage Service has finished the reparation of the damaged collector at the Czajka sewage treatment plant. The works on the redirection of the sewage from the temporary pipeline to the repaired collector were carried out at night. The Wody Polskie National Water Management Service has informed that the 2-month-long activities of protecting the Vistula River and the Baltic Sea have been completed.
We saved the Vistula River. We've completed the procedure of redirecting the sewage from the temporary pipeline to the collector repaired by the Warsaw Municipal Water and Sewage Service. The sewage is yet again moving from the repaired collector to the Czajka sewage treatment plant. We've finished the 2-month-long activities of protecting the Vistula River and the Baltic Sea. Over 500 people, including 200 soldiers, were engaged in the construction of the temporary pipeline. The temporary installation had pumped 14 million square meters of sewage in 69 days, which saved the Vistula River and the Baltic Sea from contamination. The 2 collectors responsible for the movement of the sewage into the Czajka sewage treatment plant broke down at the end of August. Consequently, all sewage was floating into the Vistula River. Thanks to the Prime Minister of Poland Mateusz Morawiecki's intervention, the city built a temporary pipeline which let the sewage flow to the Czajka company. As of today, the damaged collector has finally been repaired.
On November 17th last year, street protests began in France, establishing the Yellow Vests movement. At the climax of the turmoil, several 100,000 French people took part in the protests. The riots were violent, people were killed, and the media wrote about the exceptional brutality of the police. To what extent has this movement changed France? More on the topic from our correspondent from France, Zbigniew Stefanik. Although the manifestations gather fewer and fewer people, the Yellow Vest movement still enjoys high support. According to the survey, 55% of respondents still support the Yellow Vest movement, while according to the same survey, 63% do not want further demonstrations. This means that the French, while they massively support the demands of the Yellow Vests, are concerned about the nature of the violent demonstrations that occurred during these manifestations. It is also worth mentioning that demonstrations of this movement have also taken place. There was a high involvement of the police in Paris and activists of Black Bloc radical organizations such as Antifa. The demonstrations continue to cause a lot of violence, and the violent nature is noticed during these gatherings. It is also worth remembering that these events fit into the slightly broader context, because the social crisis is still ongoing on the sign. Doctors, policemen, firemen, teachers, as well as representatives of other professional groups also manifested. Thus, the sign issues related to social-economic issues are still controversial to such an extent that on December 14th this year, the largest trade unions in France are planning a general strike in which the trade unions are to bring together transport workers. Here, the bone of contention is the pension reform planned by the rulers, which raises more and more controversy, but also current events related to the government of Emmanuel Macron and his employees on the sign. It seems that the postulates he fought for are still valid, and the protests are still being carried out in France not only by this group, but also by trade unions and organizations that join the protests and actually constitute joint collectives. Błażej Spychalski, the spokesman for the Polish president, said in a statement for Super Express that he hopes that the act of lifting the 30-fold limit on social security contributions never goes to the president's desk. In turn, the government spokesman, Piotr Miller, stated that the government is determined to push through this bill that raises disputes in the United Right camp in the Sejm. We are not making comments on legislation which has not been approved by the Parliament. We hope that the legislation regarding the abolition of the social security upper limit of 30 times the value of the minimal social security contribution will not make its way onto the President's desk. A couple of hundred local residents have gathered in front of the Bira Migrant Center in Bosnia to protest the heightened level of insecurity caused by the arrival of thousands of migrants to their region. The Bosnian authorities have responded by introducing a 24-hour curfew for the migrants, who are no longer allowed to leave the campsite.
The protesters carried placards which read "Free Bihads" and "IOM Go Home," the latter referring to the International Organization for Migration, which runs the camp.
We only want our peace. I recently read that the UN appealed against closing Camp Bira and against restraining their movement. But what about me? My movement is restrained. After 4 p.m., we are all locked in.
Camp Bira is one of 2 migrant camps bordering Croatia where a curfew was placed by Bosnian authorities on Friday. The curfew closes gates and restricts the movement of about 2,500 people and serves as a warning to the national government to ease the burden from the region and move migrants elsewhere.
We can't sleep calmly at night. During the day, they run through our yards. Are we safe after all the years we've been living here, where we grew old? Do we have to run away and leave it to them?
About 5,000 migrants and refugees from Asia, the Middle East and North Africa have been accommodated in 5 centers in Bihać and Velika Kladuša. The migrants demand better living conditions and think that the locals don't show enough sympathy.
So now situation here is not good, not have water too much for drinking, because here is about 800 people and 4 tanks not enough for 800 people. So, and also there is everyday rain, here is everyday rain and water going inside the tents, and every situation inside tent also blankets is wet and mattress is wet. And it's not a good condition now here.
They must have to think about the situation in 1992, when there was war here. The people was refugee here as well in the other countries. So they must have to think this situation. They have to memorize that time when they people was refugees. Okay, so we people need their help. So they have to, think about that.
Bosnia has faced an upsurge in migrant arrivals since Croatia, Hungary and Slovenia closed borders against undocumented immigration, with the most people settling in the town of Bihać.
That is all for tonight. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for Poland Daily Business. Good night.